Over the last 72 hours, Pokrovsk remains the absolute bloodiest sector across the entire Ukrainian front line. We are tracking wave after wave of Russian mechanized assaults getting crushed, while up north near Vovchansk, fresh hostile pushes keep detonating. That assault volume is brutal enough. But the real tactical intel here is not just about counting the sheer number of enemy waves. It is about how this kill zone completely dominates all hostile movement. Russian troops are no longer just taking fire at the zero line in these frontline combat zones. They are actively hunted during approach, tracked in cover, and blown apart while trying to push logistical supplies into heavily contested tactical positions. This specific dynamic makes the operational theater infinitely deadlier than a standard infantry firefight. When hunter-killer FPV drones and fiber-optic data links integrate into one kill chain, a minor tactical error turns fatal in seconds. An armored transport dispatched for combat recovery gets totally wiped out before the crew even starts their mission. A shattered concrete structure looking solid enough for infantry concealment collapses into a tomb from one precision top-down strike. A quick logistical dash into the urban sector becomes a permanent one-way trip. Listen closely and stick with me, because the real tactical sidetrip in Pokrovsk and Vovchansk is not about who fields forces faster anymore. It is entirely about how pure surveillance is being weaponized into instant destruction. If tree lines, urban rubble, and zero visibility cannot provide cover, then how do Russian battalions hold any grid square under an overwatch that never blinks? The earliest indicator that the Pokrovsk sector is evolving into a meat grinder shows up before the primary assault is even launched. In one crystal-clear piece of drone footage, a Russian BMP rolls up alongside a neutralized main battle tank and seemingly initiates a battlefield recovery op. Tactically, that is a rear echelon job that demands heavy suppression and solid visual cover. Instead, a Ukrainian kamikaze drone impacts the hull almost instantly, detonating the armor in its tracks. In standard doctrine, a disabled tank is just an obstacle to clear. It baits in fresh crews, heavy logistics, and command decisions. That BMP did not push into a dead sector to extract scrap metal. It drove straight into a hot zone under relentless aerial overwatch. That explosive hit confirms the lethal threat in Pokrovsk does not stop with a mobility kill. Honestly, that is exactly where the real slaughter actually begins. Once armor goes down, any quick reaction force sent to assess, tow, or lock down that grid gets violently sucked into the exact same kill chain. The combat feed gets way more revealing post-detonation. The spotter bird does not bug out after the armor cooks off. It loiters directly above the blast radius, actively scanning for hostile thermal signatures near the wreckage. Let's analyze this together, because this is where random frontline contact shifts into a deeply organized, systematic human hunt. Dismounted infantry surviving the shockwave scrambled desperately away from the burning hull, breaking for the absolute nearest scrap of tree-line concealment. But the airspace above remains entirely hostile. Intel confirms that first kinetic strike was never the finale. It was a calculated opening gambit, launching a second phase, where fleeing personnel are individually tracked, isolated, and pinned down before reaching fortified hardpoints. This is critical intel. Pokrovsk is not some quiet tactical flank where a single brutal drone clip equals an isolated skirmish. It is consistently the highest intensity vector on the entire front line, meaning logistical arteries feeding the front take relentless fire. In this hyperlethal environment, supply routes are carrying a lot more than just troop transport. They carry tactical patterns, a blown-out tank, backup armor rolling into the kill zone, troops bailing out post-impact, all of it builds a highly visible tactical chain that Ukrainian drone operators track and exploit live. That supply route instantly stops being a safe rear boundary. It merges directly into the meat grinder. What used to be secure transit corridors now act as completely exposed firing lanes under direct enemy optics. If Russian extraction teams, logistics, and engineering units clearing wrecked steel take hits this fast, it proves Ukraine's drone dominance is actively shaping the entire operational depth behind the zero line. The tactical result is a battlefield where casualties spiral out of control, because every single reinforcement attempt spawns another juicy target. So here is the operational question drawn from that burning wreck. You and I have to ask, what is deadlier for Russian forces in Pokrovsk today? The zero-line trenches, or the asphalt leading them into hell? That is a serious strategic debate right now, because the classic trench warfare answer simply does not hold up against modern drone saturation. Russian dismounts pushing Pokrovsk do not just vanish off the radar after abandoning a struck transport. In dozens of drone feeds we monitor, Phase 2 of the slaughter kicks off the second those survivors twitch a muscle. Once armor is compromised, the engagement shifts. Let's look at this footage. It becomes a brutal foot chase against hostiles scrambling for hard cover before our next drone hits. The tactical pattern always starts right at the tree line. The second a transport takes fire, or a position collapses, we watch Russian infantry bolt toward the nearest wood line. They never stay bunched up for long. They immediately scatter, breaking formation to lower their operational profile. One hostile cuts hard left. Another pushes straight ahead and hits the dirt. A third target pauses near the brush. It is a textbook move to limit casualties from a single blast, but now we have 3 isolated targets. Our recon drones never lose visual contact. Aerial intel tracks every single combatant, relaying live coordinates. That is exactly when the attack drones begin their final approach. This next sequence shows how the battlefield has shrunk. Movement equals immediate lethal exposure. An infantry squad attempts to bound from trunk to trunk, in short, desperate bursts. They freeze for a few seconds, then sprint again. Instead of breaking line of sight, that erratic rhythm makes tracking them dead simple. The operator just locks onto their vector of advance and waits for the next sprint. Every tactical pause broadcasts their objective. Every terrified sprint narrows down exactly where they plan to seek shelter. Before these troops even reach hard cover, their previous movements have already telegraphed their final destination. This is why our combat feeds keep locking onto the exact same locations. A shattered farmhouse, a storage shed, a crumbled wall, some blown-out tactical structure. Russian infantry reach these strongpoints one by one, desperately trying to vanish inside. Some breach through shattered doorways. Others stack up in exterior corners. A few hit the dirt against the masonry and pray. But we have eyes in the sky. The moment a hostile breaches a building, that grid becomes a designated kill zone. Our drone units stop sweeping the wider sector entirely. Operators just lock down the exits and surrounding perimeter, waiting for the perfect strike window. In recent combat footage, that tactical window opens instantly. A hostile takes cover in a destroyed building, then shifts his firing position moments later. An enemy squad hits a structure and tries to maintain a low profile outside. Another operator hugs the exterior wall, praying the roofline masks him from aerial surveillance. On this battlefield, none of those survival tactics last very long. Recon holds the target lock, and the suicide drone is vectored precisely onto the last known point of enemy movement. The heavy explosions are not what matters. What matters is the terrifyingly short gap between being painted as a target and getting hit. This is the massive tactical shift we are reporting today. For Russian ground forces, securing cover is no longer enough. On the Pokrovsk front, troops still try to hide, but it changes nothing. It only buys them a few extra seconds before impact. If you agree with my sitrep of this engagement, drop into the comments and let us debate one crucial strategic question. Is battlefield concealment now just a brief delay, rather than a genuine guarantee of survival? The Pokrovsk sector turns absolutely lethal once Ukrainian operators stop treating a single tank or bunker as a one-off objective and start executing sustained, layered strikes. This is exactly where the combat zone stops feeling like random skirmishes and shifts into a highly orchestrated kill chain. In multiple frontline recordings, when heavy armor refuses to go down, command diverts multiple strike packages onto that exact grid until the crew has zero chance of saving the rig. The kill chain starts with initial contact, not instant obliteration. We track a mechanized unit pushing hard or idling dangerously near a tree line. The vanguard bird lands a direct hit, but it rarely results in a catastrophic kill. The asset drops speed, pivots off course, or just sits there absorbing heavy structural damage. Right then, if the primary hull holds, you can tell the crew actually believes they survived the ambush. Some hunker down in the cabin, others frantically test if the diesel block will turn over. A few pop the top hatch and prepare to bail. Command launches a secondary strike package instantly. Out here, Rapid timing matters far more than explosive yield. That second operator is not sweeping the sector or hunting for fresh prey. Listen up. The mission here is precise and lethal. That first strike already immobilized the enemy armor. Now, the follow-on FPV drone moves in to secure the kill before hostiles bail out. Tactically speaking, Impact 1 cripples the mobility, while Impact 2 slams the door on any survival. That transforms a mobility kill into a catastrophic total loss. We are seeing that exact same brutal logic applied when Russian infantry scramble for hard cover. Under old combat doctrines, a solid concrete structure gave your squad decent protection if you breached it fast enough. In today's combat footage, that outdated assumption gets shredded instantly. These heavy FPV drones are packing uprated payloads. They do not just pepper a wall and bounce off. Operators fly them straight through windows or drop them right through the roof, triggering instant devastation. Load-bearing walls shatter. The entire top level of the structure simply collapses. Choking dust and shrapnel blow outward, flushing the surviving hostiles directly into the kill zone. That is Phase 2 of the assault. Command is not just striking the structure to level it, they are striking it to force movement. Once that stronghold cracks, any surviving infantry face a brutal choice: bleed out in the rubble or sprint outside into enemy sights. Both tactical options heavily favor the drone squad. If targets hold their position, another warhead is inbound. If they break cover, they expose themselves as completely unprotected moving targets. This is calculated tactical warfare, not just a random reel of explosions. The crucial intelligence here is the sequencing. Every single strike softens the battlefield for the next one. An armored transport surviving, that initial detonation becomes an absolute sitting duck. A compromised bunker becomes a death trap. An infantry crew caught hesitating buys enough time for the backup drone to acquire the target. In this intense sector, heavy armor might deflect some shrapnel, but it essentially creates a massive, sluggish bullseye that gets pinned down, battered, and ultimately abandoned under heavy fire. You and I need to evaluate this reality. Are main battle tanks still viable shields in this conflict? Or are they just oversized metal coffins that drone operators dismantle piece by piece? The frontline tension does not just end with mechanized units or pinned-down infantry. These exact same lethal drone swarms are now actively strangling the critical supply lines. What used to be standard milk runs, deep in the rear, are transforming into extreme high-risk operations, getting neutralized way before hitting the drop zone. Reviewing recent operational footage, Russian logistics trucks pushing to the zero line get painted on radar early. They track them instead of striking immediately. We are spotting a very distinct pattern during nighttime ops. A logistics truck rolls up to a blasted ruin, currently serving as a makeshift forward operating base. The driver maintains speed and foolishly flips his headlights on near the perimeter. In that critical moment, the drone operator holds fire. The bird loiters at high altitude, tracking the transport down the corridor. The ultimate strike happens only when that truck hits the rally point. That calculated timing changes everything. They eliminate the vehicle right at the depot. That exposes the hidden coordinates, the critical munitions, and the squad waiting for resupply. That specific tactical maneuver proves how one careless transport can burn multiple high-value targets. The convoy is not just hauling rations. It is literally drawing a map straight to a fortified position. Once aerial recon confirms that vector, command delays the strike until maximum damage is guaranteed. We track this exact same protocol when lone wolf transports try sneaking through to minimize their heat signature. A solitary rig driving down a dead sector might seem stealthy enough to evade radar, but it actually becomes a wildly easy mark. With zero convoy traffic to hide in, the drone locks on, verifies the payload, and waits for the absolute perfect kill shot. The fallout from this triggers a brutal chain reaction across the entire grid. When a transport gets smoked on a tight dirt road, the trailing convoy is completely blocked. They are forced to stop, reverse course, or wait for an alternate vector. Every single delay starves the frontline battalions relying on that logistics drop. Heavy ordnance arrives late. Rations run completely dry. Vital replacement gear never actually reaches the trenches. None of this tactical collapse happens because of one massive airstrike. Listen, this is death by 1,000 cuts. Relentless targeted drone strikes are actively rewriting how modern combat operations unfold. Listen, these new fiber optic combat drones are nearly impossible to stop. Bypassing standard radio links entirely, they keep hunting and prosecuting targets right through the thickest electronic warfare nets we have ever seen deployed. I am watching the supply lines near Pokrovsk turn into an absolute slaughterhouse. This is not just rearguard support anymore. It is active combat. It is a brutal kill zone where every single convoy bleeds, and bleeding here starves the front line. In modern warfare, we do not need to wipe out a massive armor column to stop an entire offensive push cold. Striking one lead truck at the perfect second shatters the momentum keeping that formation alive. Seeing this tactical shift on the ground, you and I have to ask one brutal question. Have supply lines actually become the primary front line of this war? If my read is accurate, then these dirt roads dictate whether a massive assault rolls forward or completely bleeds out before making first contact with the enemy. Nightfall does not save Russian infantry anymore. Ukrainian combat drone operators are bringing that exact same relentless slaughter straight into the pitch black. Moving during the day is suicide. Moving after midnight is not any safer. The threat just mutates. High-grade thermal optics let these killer squads track warm bodies and running engines across totally blacked-out terrain. Let us review one night strike to see this nightmare escalate. A small Russian squad pushes forward blind, maintaining wide spacing, desperately hoping to slip past the radar unseen. They strictly avoid bunching up in groups. Walking a loose skirmish line, they wrongly trust that dead silence and wide gaps mean total safety. But the thermal feed locks on. Glowing body heat betrays every man, and the second the first bomb drops, team cohesion completely vaporizes. They instantly devolve into isolated targets scrambling across the black dirt. Watch their discipline collapse on the feed. One guy sprints ahead to break away. Another panics and drops back. A third man rips sideways, ditching the rest of his squad. Natural survival instincts kick in, but running blind completely destroys any chance of mutual support. Once that perimeter fractures, covering your buddy in a firefight becomes an absolute physical impossibility. When the drone strikes one, the rest are too scattered to return fire. In night operations, this is fatal. Those first frantic seconds after an ambush dictate who lives and who dies out there. Here is the tactical reality. The operators do not need massive payloads to completely shatter an advance. They just apply relentless pressure until the squad scatters too far and their operational tempo crashes hard. Once you hit that point, any advantage of moving as infantry evaporates. A disciplined fire team entering the black zone leaves it as terrified, isolated stragglers, every single guy fighting solely for his own pulse. That kills the assault dead and turns the next objective into a meat grinder. We are tracking this exact same strategy around Vovchansk. Up north, Ukrainian tactical units dissect Russian infantry with chilling precision. They are not chasing one massive cinematic explosion for the cameras. Their real mission is bleeding the enemy force dry until the offensive simply runs out of momentum. One-point man gets shredded crossing a field. Another catches shrapnel inside a destroyed bunker. A third gets hunted down trying to sprint between blasted trees. One casualty seems minor, but stacking those kills quietly hollows out the assault wave before it can actually hit the trenches. Let us pull back and look at the whole map together. This is a deliberate, linked combat strategy, not random skirmishes. Pokrovsk proves how aerial kill squads violently punish any troop movement across the Donetsk sector. Vovchansk proves this exact same meat grinder tactic absolutely destroys infantry, pushes through constant, grinding attrition. With thermal skies staring down all night, darkness offers zero protection anymore. The black only blinds the boots on the ground, never the hunter overhead. To me, this is the most terrifying reality of modern combat. Daylight cover is completely worthless now. And that old infantry trick of sneaking through the dark is totally dead too. If these drones turn both noon and midnight into identical kill zones, then how on earth do armies rewrite the tactical playbook to deploy ground troops when the night itself stops being a reliable shield? What you and I are really witnessing today is not just some lucky hits. You and I are looking at a closed chain of pressure, tightening ruthlessly across every phase of combat. An armored recovery vehicle gets absolutely torched before its salvage mission even gets off the ground. Survivors scramble for the tree line, but drone optics keep them pinned down. Blasted houses and ruined sheds offer only seconds of cover before the next payload drops. This absolute zero-margin environment is crucial. When one force locks down the low-altitude airspace, they completely throttle enemy momentum, shatter unit coordination, and bleed out an assault one isolated target at a time. Individual tactical strikes might look small, but together they dictate the brutal tempo of this entire theater. So, let's step back and ask what actually comes next. Russian command might pivot to smaller squad elements, shorter bounds, and heavier thermal camouflage. But with drone detection this rapid and artillery follow-ups this dialed in, those shifts merely mitigate casualties instead of actually breaking the kill chain. That is where the real tactical debate starts. Can Russian mechanized units actually counter this absolute drone dominance over sectors like Pokrovsk and Vovchansk? Or are you and I watching the permanent new reality of ground warfare? Drop your intel in the comments. Hit the like button, share this sitrep with your network, and subscribe to Military Force for hard-hitting, unfiltered analysis on battlefield maneuvers, heavy weapons, and the global geopolitics driving them.